Today I'm starting on my tonneau cover project. I've been contemplating how I wanted to do this for a long time, and I think I've finally come up with a plan. The biggest hang-up I've really had is the hinge system. I thought about buying one of those continuous hinges and just go all the way across the front, but buying a heavy-duty one of those isn't cheap. They're $100 plus, so I thought, well, what can I do, to be sturdy and on the cheap. So I bought some hinges, and I just can't quite get them to work the way I want and look the way I want. So I bought these. They're nice and heavy duty, but I couldn't figure out a way to mount them that would keep the hinge from being completely exposed. If I come up from the bottom, we'll say, here's the, see if I can do this, but say here's the top. Anytime it comes up like that, it shoves the tonneau cover into the front of the bed. And that's because I want the tonneau cover to sit right at this bed line here, not up here, but right through the, right under this. So it'll, when it comes out, it's tailgate, or just a hair below the tailgate. I've seen the other ones that come across up the top of the bed, which a true tonneau cover would cover the whole bed. I don't like the looks of those on this truck because it's weird the way you've got this little piece here where it steps up and away up above the tailgate. So I wanted to sit below. So I went through different options in the front, and so what I've come up with, and I might regret doing this, I don't know, but I'm gonna do this. I've notched the bed to sit this pin down, and this is, make sure it's not too hot, I just welded this. So there we go. So this is just a piece of angle iron. I'm going with heavy duty angle iron. You wouldn't have to go this heavy. The only reason I'm doing that is these holes are going to be blind, so this is thick enough I can drill and tap. Otherwise, I could just weld nuts on the back. That's fine too, but in my junk pile I had this heavy duty stuff. So I've notched the bed, and the reason I've notched it, a guy could have it come in and sit down on top. That would be okay, but in order to get where I need to be, so that's just a bolt. I just found a bolt, and I've got this half-inch gas line pipe, and a guy has to grind the inner weld out to smooth the inside out. But once you do that, it's a really nice fit on this bolt, and I think that's a 5/8 bolt. So I'm going to make that. I'll do this on both sides, and there'll just be one large pipe going across there, and that'll act as my hinge. And then from there, I've got, I don't have a piece here, but 1-inch square tubing that I will build the, here, there's just a test chunk. I'll build the tonneau cover off of this. I'll build a whole square frame around, and then, probably 2 foot on center supports. And then this, so the frame of the tonneau cover will weld to the bottom of that. So the reason I needed to set this down into the bed is because I need the metal. I want the metal to be below that. And then what my plan is right now, instead of using a piece of plywood and cover it with vinyl, is I found some old corrugated roofing. So I'm gonna try using that as the tonneau cover. I like the idea. My thought is, if a guy were gonna build a tonneau cover for this in the 60s, or the 50s, that's something that would have been commonly available. It would be sturdy, heavy duty, weatherproof, all that. The other thing too is if I say I put a sheet of plywood on here and cover it with vinyl, which would be fine, I'm gonna have brand new vinyl against this faded out paint. That would be okay, but I'm thinking this weathered old corrugated roofing would look pretty good inset in there. And again, I think it fits the era of what a person would have done too. I don't remember ever seeing this done. I don't think it's probably an original idea, but maybe once I get it done, it's gonna look too corny, and I'll junk it for plywood and cover plywood, or just paint the plywood. I could just paint the plywood primer red as well. So that, I might end up doing that, I don't know. But right now I'm going to corrugated roofing. I think it'll look okay. It might look even, decent. So we'll see. But my main hang up thus far has been the hinge system, and having a pipe hinge like that across the front. It's going to allow this whole thing to hinge up and away from the truck, and it's not going to bind, because my roofing, when I come into it, or the sheet metal, is going to stop at that pipe. That'll be the end of the road. So that pipe is going to be exposed, which I don't think it'll look too bad, especially once I paint it to match the truck. And that'll give the radius a nice smooth radius to come up. I mean, it should be able to tip up probably as high as I want, but it should tip up more than I even want. So I'll know more as I go, but this is the plan so far, and I'm going to give it a try. I'm really nervous about notching that bed out like I did. I don't like cutting into metal that I don't need to. Not that I couldn't fix that real easy where it's at. And it's inside of a stake pocket, so it's basically a blind hole. A lot of guys just cover the stake pockets up anyway and get rid of them, which, you know, if that's a thought too. I don't think they hurt the look of the truck any. Whether they're there or not really isn't a deal breaker for me. I am gonna have a little bit of this angle iron exposed, but it's so minor, and I can shape it a little bit with a grinder once I'm all done. So I'm gonna keep plugging away here and see how this goes. I think it'll work, but I'll have to just test things as I go here. So far, so good on this thought. Yeah, I'm digging it so far. I've got both sides made and set in there. The only thing I've noticed is that in order to get this pipe in there, both ends need to drop down at the same time. You can't put it in one and do the other. Not a big deal. It just all has to be raised out as an assembly, drop back in as an assembly. The way this piece goes, it's in front of the stake pocket. You can see my finger recess in there. So where I have this lined up, it actually takes a little bit of a prying to kind of get it to pop under and go forward, which is good. It's a good snug fit. Looks level side to side. This gas pipe isn't perfectly straight, I've noticed, but when I weld the square tubing to it, that can straighten any kinks out. It ain't got to be perfectly straight anyway, so I'm not too worried. It does spin freely. I've made it really tight, so it's a snug fit right now. Figure I can always I can always remove material if I need to. It's a little harder to put it back, but so yeah, coming along. So the next thing I'm going to do is figure out where I want to put a couple holes down here. I'll drill those and then line this up and get those holes drilled and tapped. And then once this is fixed in there solid, then I can go to making the basic square tube frame for the rest of the tonneau cover. Well, still plugging away here. Ran into some unforeseens, mostly poor engineering on my part, but I had to notch around the upper bolt that holds that fancy new bracket in, as you can kind of see there. I probably should have put that bolt another, well, you know, realistically it probably wouldn't matter, because even if I put it lower, when this thing goes to hinge up, it would have hit it anyway. So I've just had to notch. Let me go over there and show you a little better. But I had to notch along the bed side, which isn't going to hurt anything. But you can see up in there, I've notched around that. And then I 45 this one, which I didn't the other one. And when it went to open, it was hitting this bolt here. So I had to take a Sawzall down from the top to get in here to cut that end off, because without being able to raise it up, I wouldn't be able to get at that top bolt to take the thing apart. So I almost had to cut the piece off, but since I was able to come in through the top, I unfortunately scratched the paint off of that and actually dug into the metal just a hair, which, I mean, for this truck it ain't gonna hurt nothing, but I would have rather not done that. So that's actually scored into the metal now. This side's not as nice. As you can see, it's squared off. Same notch over here, same concept, but I mean, it'll work. It raises all the way up now. I spent way more time than I should have trying to get these bars as parallel to the bed. Nothing on the bed square. I just finally just started eyeballing, or actually, I think I started measuring. I just measured front to back, but it's hard to measure because this edge isn't sharp, so it's actually kind of hard to measure off that to get a good bearing. But I'm overdoing it, unfortunately. I think I just was overthinking it. It'll be fine. This whole thing's going to twist, and it isn't going to be perfectly rigid. It's not a frame on a car, so I don't know why I got carried away with it, but that's kind of my personality, unfortunately. So that, yeah, this is, it's coming out good. This piece ended up being a little bit longer than the other one, just as I was setting it in there, but nobody's going to notice that. Anyway, it's going to be covered. So next thing I'll do is I need to weld another square tubing across the front here, just this side of the tubing, so the metal has a front, just like you're doing a roof on a house. The metal has something to attach to here, and then probably 2 or 3 more dividers depending on what the spacing is. I'd like to try to go about 2-foot spacing, but I might just split the difference here, and whatever that is should be fine. So I'm not sure on the back end what I'm going to do as far as giving this place a spot to sit. I might take and weld some sheet metal tabs to the bedside here, so when the frame's down it can rest on those. And then I'm also probably going to take the pistons off of the Mustang that I tried to use on the hood but were too heavy duty. I really doubt they're going to be too heavy duty for this, so I'll probably attach those, I'm thinking, to these new fender tubs when I get to that point, and that'll support it some too. But like I said, I've never done this before, so I'm learning as I go. And then I need to, before I put the tin, I need to take it all back apart so I can weld on the back side of this tubing, because there's going to be a lot of force on that as it's twisting to pull that up, and that hinge if it binds or whatever, it's going to have a lot of leverage on it. So I wanted to be able to weld it front and back, but I need to get it apart, paint these brackets, and then put lots of grease on those hinge pins so that those don't get rusted and to where I can't open this darn thing at all. So but making some progress, not as much as I was hoping to do today, just because again, I was overthinking this, I think, with trying to get everything as square as possible, which was silly, but okay, we're plugging away here. Okay, I got the frame tacked together, so we're making some progress here. You can see it's getting heavier, I noticed, which isn't a big surprise, but it can fold clear up. Well, it's hitting my hoist up there, but basically I can open it up all the way if I wanted to where it hits the cab with the hinge that I made, which not my intention, but I'd rather be able to open too far than not far enough. So it's coming along nicely, opens and closes smooth, so I dig that. So now I'm going to take the pistons off the Mustang hatch that I tried to use on the hood a while back, and they're way too stiff for that, but they might not even be stiff enough for this. I don't know. That Mustang lid, the hatch is really heavy, so it might be okay. So I'm thinking about mounting this back in here. So I made these little brackets here. It's my first attempt at the hinge, and didn't use them. So I might drop them down to these 2 holes there, and then weld a little nub on there to mount the little ball joints that these use. And I'll just go from that corner out like that and see if that'll be strong enough to lift this up if I have them on both sides. So that's going to work on now. I haven't finished welding this up. I just wanted to get everything tacked in place, make sure it's all working, and then hopefully I can get this thing out without a big fuss. I kind of screwed up. Might have mentioned already that my bolt axis down here's not very good. To do some trimming, so the lid will actually have to be open in order to expose being able to unscrew the top bolt that mounts the hinge, but not a big deal, because if this is closed you can't get to it. Once the lid's on it, you wouldn't be able to access that anyway without opening. So I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I'm just hoping that I made it to where I can disassemble it. I sure hope so, otherwise I'm going to have to cut it apart and fix that, but we'll see. I ain't too worried about it. I think I can wrestle it out of there. So, but right now I'm working on the piston lifts on both sides, and then we'll go from there. This is coming out better than I thought it would. I guess maybe I didn't have high enough expectations, but so I've got the 2 Mustang pistons installed, and they're actually too strong so far. Maybe once I get the lid put on, it might balance out, but they're working really well. So I've got the brackets all spotted in, and I'll give you a close-up on those in a minute. I just wanted to show you how well this worked. And the guy will probably, you know, the tailgate will be closed. Might need to put a little rope or something on there to just kind of, when it opens up, gives you a pull handle to pull it back down. I wanted it high enough that I can come in from the side here like this and still be able to reach in under here and get the spare tire, tools, or whatever. It seems kind of high, but to make this all work, I don't think it's too bad. But I actually had to pull this down with a decent amount of force. I mean, these cylinders are plenty strong. I might actually have to get some others that are a little bit weaker. I didn't think they would be strong enough, being so far forward and having so much weight and leverage out the back. These are working. I mean, this is going to work out great. It closes real nice. A little bit of rubbing in a couple spots, but I'm not too worried about that. I can maybe put a little rubber bumper or something in, or not worry about that. A little scratch inside the bed isn't going to hurt my feelings too much. But I mean, I can just let this thing go and it just flies up. So I don't want to get too aggressive with it because I just got the bracket spot welded on there. I don't want to tear them off. But probably in reality, I could probably just use one, but it would make it all cocked, you know, it would come up crooked, so don't want that. No, I'm tickled with this, so I'll get these welded on there a little bit better, and then probably about to the point I need to take the whole thing apart and weld up all, get everything welded, painted, and then I need to get those pins greased and all that. But let me grab the camera and I'll show you a close-up of how I made the brackets and stuff, in case that maybe helps somebody else with the similar idea. So here's a close-up of what I've done here. So this upper piece, just a piece of angle iron, welded on there, nothing special. Down here, so I'm using the factory bolts that go through the bed sides to mount. It's just a little piece of channel iron that I found. A guy could use, I don't know, whatever, piece of tubing or something. And then this little other piece down here is also, it's a short chunk of that channel iron that's cut. And I just welded, let me try to get it there. There you go. There you can kind of see what I've done. So that's just welded to that. And so that stuff's 1/2 inch thick. So when I put both together like that, stacked it, then that gave me 1 inch. So, you know, the cylinder's technically the same distance all the way up. Since this is 1 inch thick, that puts this 1 inch away from the, I mean, these cylinders, you have some, they have that ball on the end, so they're flexible, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want it binding up. And then my hinge piece, and when I get it all back apart, I'll show you a close-up of that, which I pretty much did. The only thing I've really changed since I showed you is I just drilled and tapped it, so I didn't, you know, when these bolts run into that angle iron, it's just they're blind holes drilled and tapped, so I don't have to get in there with a wrench. So no, I'm pretty tickled so far. These other spots is where I started out, and I had a weaker cylinder I was using as just a mock-up, and so I set it up with that, and this cylinder couldn't even, it was too close when it was open. The cylinder would darn near run the whole lid straight up and down before it was extended, so I needed to move it out a few inches there. So trial and error, that's why I spot things together and test them before I make them permanent. So yep, we're coming along nicely. Something I remembered I needed to do before I even consider taking this back out is the latch system. So what I've come up with is I've welded these two, one there and one there, square tubing to the tailgate, and then I've installed some hood pins like off a muscle car or something. Use square tubing because I didn't want this to come down on the nut, so I wanted to bolt it down here in the bottom and then run it all the way up through like that. And then having this big square piece of tubing, I can spread the load out on the tailgate so it doesn't want to just rip out of the tailgate if I just had a, you know, just a piece of flat bar or something. A piece of angle iron would probably work, but again, angle iron wouldn't allow me to do this setup here, so either way would be fine. And then that gives me adjustable tension on it, so I can just pop the pins, pull them out. And then the other thing too is you can't open the tailgate. Obviously it's latch, sorry. But you can't open the tailgate without unpinning this first. And my thought is if I can come up with a locking system, some kind of lock, or add a like for a paddle lock ring or something on there later. I haven't decided, but this allows that to pop right up like that. And then of course, you know, those are stuck to the tailgate old times. So when you open and close the tailgate, you can't remove those, but I don't see that really being a problem. This is more of a trunk than it is a pickup box now. So building a hot rod, not a farm truck. So I think this will work fine. So I got to thinking, I'll just go ahead and weld all this stuff while it's in the truck. I don't really need to weld underneath. You know, they don't need to be welded all the way around anyway. I don't think. And something I've ran into, just to note, the guy should drill some drain holes in this pipe. I don't think any water could get into it, but you know, once I screw down the lid, water could get in there, and if it can't get out, it'll freeze. And if you get enough water, it'll swell and freeze that pipe up. We've had that happen on headache racks and stuff on pickups and trucks. So I'll go through and drill a hole or two in each of them, just so there's a drain in them as well, before I'm all completely done. But no, this is, I like that. That comes out, or that came out good, I think. Well, here's my finished product. I decided to skin it in old corrugated roofing I found. Kind of thought that if a guy were going to do this in the late 50s, early 60s, that might be an option. I've never seen that corrugated roofing done on a bed before for a tonneau cover, so I'm sure it's been done, but I haven't decided if I really like the look yet or not. I don't hate it by any means, but kind of right now, I like the fact that I found some aged roofing to kind of go with the truck, but now I'm kind of torn on if it's too much, if I should probably just primer it red or something. But I'd be curious what you guys think. I can always take a sheet of plywood and cover it in vinyl or something and just make a regular looking tonneau cover, but I kind of thought this fit the era. But I got a little bit of work left to do, a little bit of grinding on the sides to get the fitment just right, but hood pins they're gonna work good. Just got the one in for now, so pop that out. Comes right up. Adding the metal really took some of the strength away from the piston, so now it no longer flies up. It's almost just perfect now. But everything, it was a little tricky to put the lid back on. I had to use my little shop hoist, or a little chain lift thing in the shop. I lifted it in the front here and then had my son help me line it up to drop it back on the truck. But it wasn't terrible. But I'm pretty happy with what it turned out. I'm just not sure I love the look of the corrugate, the galvanized. It kind of looks cool because it's old, but I don't know if it really fits the truck that well. So I'm going to give that some time and think about that. But otherwise, as far as how it operates and stuff, I'm pretty tickled with it. Nice tight fit there. Oop, forgot my hood pins here. Nice. These work real well. They have the regular type pins, but I like these better. These are more like implement style, so they're a little sturdier. I think easier to pull on like that. So no, I'm real happy with how it turned out. We'll see if it squeaks and squawks going down the road or not. I don't think it will. Everything is pretty tight on it, so I'm not too worried about that. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.